Hello, fellow sewing lovers. Today's sewing tip is always check your fabric before you start using it. I know that's such a basic tip, but I forgot to do it last week. I realized that I was working with a fabric that had a hole in it, so I basically wasted 2 hours of my time. Welcome back. My name is Justine, and this is my sewing journal. If you remember from last time, I only had 2 meters of fabric to use with this pattern, which is not enough because this pattern calls for at least 3 meters, depending on your height. So, anyway, I only had 2 meters, so therefore I needed an extra meter. And so I ordered the fabric again. So I ordered an extra meter, and on the day that it actually arrived, not even bother washing or inspecting the fabric. If I did wash that fabric, I would have noticed the hole because I normally iron the fabrics before I start using the fabric. I actually wasted 2 hours of my time cutting the fabric out and sewing it or attaching it to the rest of the dress only to find the hole when the dress is almost finished. So don't do what I've done. Always inspect your fabric. I think I will be able to sew the hole neatly, but it will always bother me knowing that there is a hole in front of the dress. If the hole was somewhere else other than the front of the dress, I would have just darned that hole close. So now let me share what I actually finished sewing last week, which is this top that I'm wearing. It's actually a wearable toile. I hack this Mccall's Brandi Joan dress to make a top. I really like the style of this dress. It's very feminine, it's very romantic, and I like that there's two variations in terms of length. And it looks like it could be a summer dress, but depending on the fabric that you use, it could also be a special occasion dress. So let's have a look at the details of this dress. It is close fitting. It has a princess seam with front tie keyhole detail, a low back, and small flounce sleeves or strap, and an invisible zipper at the back. My reservation with this pattern is that I'm not sure if the front bodice will sit nicely on the chest area. It looks like it will gape a little here. So I thought I'll check the fit by making a wearable toile. I think the skirt part of the dress will be fine, so I'm only making the top half to check the fit. For this project, I'm using a remnant of the cotton material that I used to make the Alexia top last month. So the first thing I did was line up the patterns to check the length of the blouse. I always get this part wrong when I shorten pattern pieces. Somehow, I always end up with pieces of different lengths. I thought I had lined up the pieces using the waistline guidelines, but you'll see towards the end that I made the same mistake again. The pieces did end up different lengths, but not by much. I'll get it right in the future. There's a total of 9 pieces that I need to eke out of the remnant material that I have. I cut a size 12 bodice, but I did make the waist a little bit wider, closer to size 14 measurements. I have enough material for the main pieces, but I had to raid my stash again for the lining. Luckily, I have this red lining material. I would have preferred to use another cotton material, but I don't have any on hand. This lining material is a bit slippery and not too easy to handle. But on the plus side, it matches the red roses on the main fabric and it provides a good contrast. So I thought I'll use it for the ribbon on the bodice. It took me longer to cut the lining pieces because the fabric was really difficult to handle. If I hadn't liked the color that much, I might have skipped lining this top. After all, the purpose of making it was to check the fit of the pattern. Anyway, I persevered because I like the idea of adding a red ribbon accent. After the tedious process of cutting out the pattern pieces, I started following the sewing instructions. I skipped the initial step of interfacing the front of the yoke and the bodice, as I thought the cotton material and lining would be stable enough to keep their shape. The pattern instructions were easy to follow. There weren't any steps that confused me. It was simply a matter of sewing the pieces together and checking the fit. I think I'm off to a good start because the bust cups looks like it will be a good fit. As I was stitching the pieces together, I was thinking about how to use more of the red lining material. I considered adding more bows or ribbons to create additional red accents. Then I thought maybe I don't need to use an invisible zipper on the back. Instead of using a zipper, I decided to make the top corset like with laces on the sides. The plan is to use the red material for the laces so that they match the red ribbon at the front. This might not have been the best idea since I'm testing the fit of the pattern. Using laces might not make it obvious whether the fit is good or not, but I went ahead with this plan anyway. Apart from not using interfacing, I did not make any changes to the front bodice. I started to French seam the front bodice before I remembered that I didn't need to do this because this top will have a lining. While I sewed the front and side bodices together, I was thinking of making the keyhole bigger. I thought the keyhole feature wouldn't be visible since there is a ribbon on the front bodice. But before enlarging the keyhole, I thought I should attach the top yoke to the bodice first. This was the most exciting part of making this top. I was drawn to this sewing pattern because I really like the neckline. I haven't seen any other pattern with the same style neckline. It feels vintage, but at the same time contemporary. After the first fitting, I thought there wouldn't be any need for adjustments except for the size of the keyhole. The bust cups look like they will fit okay, although I won't know for sure until I sew the front and back bodices together. Sewing the back pieces together was straightforward. I just had to remind myself that there was no zipper to be inserted. After sewing the back bodice together, I then prepared the flounce sleeves. Again, this is straightforward, although I didn't cut the pattern piece on the bias. I thought I wouldn't have enough fabric, so I didn't follow the grain line direction as per the pattern piece. However, after cutting all the pieces, I realized I actually had enough to recut them. Instead of cutting new pieces, I thought I might just cut two extra pieces later and have a two-layer flounce sleeves. Now it's time to attach the front to the back bodice. On the second fitting, I adjusted the shoulder straps, which were just a little long, shortening them by an inch. I also cut approximately an inch off the sides of the back bodice as I needed to be slightly narrower so that when I lace it up, the laces can really be seen on the sides. After those adjustments, I then added the flounce sleeves. Then it was time to assemble the lining. I made all the adjustments I made on the main fabric to this lining fabric. Look how gorgeous this top is in this red lining fabric. I'm bookmarking this dress pattern to sew for a special occasion. I need to make this dress pattern in a red fabric. Satin is not recommended for this pattern, but perhaps a heavier type of satin or silk would work. Now, can someone please invite me to a nice event so I can make it? Now, going back to this top, I am marking where the loops for the laces will go. Making and sewing these loops took forever. I kind of regret this decision now. I would have finished sooner if I had stuck to the original design. Inserting an invisible zipper would have been quicker, but I'm here now, so I pushed on. What added to the time was the fact that I didn't know how many loops I would end up adding. I took some measurements, but I made extra strips in case I decided to add more loops when I placed them on the garment. There was quite a lot of pinning and adjusting before I was happy with the positions of these loops. Found it tricky deciding on how far apart these loops needed to be. And of course, it's not just and of course, these loops needs to be added to both sides of the top. Another thing that added to the time spent on these loops was hand basting them. If I pinned or clipped them, I think they will move when I take the pins out and sew them on in the sewing machine. Anyway, I got there in the end. I did make more strips of the fabric than needed, but hey ho, here comes the exciting part of turning the garment inside out to see how it actually looks like. I think it's looking good at this point. The next step is to hand stitch the gap where I pulled the garment through on the shoulder straps. At this stage, I forgot to add the extra layer of flounce sleeves I said I wanted to add earlier. I should have prepared the sleeves in advance or written a reminder down. Anyway, I tried the top one last time to see if any further adjustments needed to be made. The front is a bit loose and the shoulder straps slide, so I need to fix those and add an extra layer of sleeves. And here is the finished top. I tacked the two sides of the yoke to hold them in place. I think for next time, I will just make another ribbon to tie the yokes together. I also realized that I don't need to make the keyhole any bigger. I think I will just make the ribbons thinner so that they look more delicate. I'm not sure how else to solve the problem of the straps sliding. I have already shortened them, so I think they are the right length. I had to add this strap to keep them in place. And it works, but it distracts from the nice shape of the back. Overall, I like this top, and this is how I will be wearing it for the foreseeable future. It has got colder, so I will be using it for layering. Maybe we'll have another heat wave, or I might have to wait until next year before I can wear it on its own. Since summer is coming to an end, I thought I should finish sewing this cardigan. I started sewing it earlier this year, but I ruined it when I made the buttonholes untidy. I thought using a contrasting color of thread would look good, but it actually looked messy. I used the Nomi 2003 pattern to make this cardigan. I omitted the ruffles and extended the length. I also added heart-shaped pockets by following this Instagram tutorial. It was easy to follow and Julie makes good tutorials, so if you haven't yet, do follow her on Instagram. On my version, I made the hearts bigger, but that wasn't actually necessary. As for the pocket lining, I have the perfect fabric to use. I made this blouse a couple of years ago and kept the offcuts. I also have these red heart-shaped buttons that I was contemplating to use. I also have this heart-shaped iron-on patch which I bought on a recent trip to Vienna. After some thought, I decided against using the heart-shaped buttons and the iron-on patch. I think it's better to keep the pockets as the cardigan's main feature. As for the buttons, I just use plain round black buttons to match the pocket lining. I recently bought 1.2 meters of this viscose jacquard fabric online. I was drawn to the celestial motifs, but I wasn't sure how bright the gold stars would be, so I decided to buy a small amount first. I'm not sure what to make with this yet. I am contemplating on getting an extra 2 meters because I like the pattern and I think I want a dress, either a dress or a skirt and a blouse. But I will think about it after I finish the 70s dress. I might use either one of these dress patterns, the Bella or the Alexia. The Alexia is my recent favorite, so I might go for that again. I hope you enjoyed today's chat. Until next time, happy sewing. Bye!